Happy day to all. In this video, we are going to discuss in detail about the weathering of rock. Before entering into the discussion of weathering of rock, first we will discuss about what is meant by rock. As we all know, our earth surface which will be made up of three components. One is air, second one is rock or stone, and third one is the water. So, the most of our earth surface which will be covered by the rock. So rock is nothing but the rocks are natural mass of mineral matters that make up the earth crust. The rock which will be have different colors, textures, size, properties, etc. The rock are divided into three types based upon its formation. So the different types of rock are igneous rock, sedimentary rock and metamorphic rock. So as we all know, the rock is nothing but the mineral of compositions. If the rock will undergoes any stresses, temperature changes or frost action, the rock will be disintegrated into smaller pieces. That particular process is known as the weathering. So the process of in situ mechanical disintegration or chemical decomposition of rock of the earth by certain physical and chemical agencies of the atmosphere is known as weathering. The weathering is divided into three types: physical weathering, chemical weathering and biological weathering. The physical weathering is also known as the mechanical weathering. So the mechanical weathering, it is a natural process of disintegration of rock into smaller fragments, and after the weathering also there will be no changes in the chemical composition. Only the shape of the particular rock get altered by disintegrating into smaller pieces. Those kind of weatherings are known as the physical weathering or mechanical weathering. Only the changes in the shape of the rock will take place. So the physical weathering are occurred mainly due to the two actions, that is the external actions. Those actions are frost action and thermal effect. So mainly the physical or mechanical weathering is occurred due to the difference in the temperature. If there will be a huge amount of temperature will be act on a rock, means the rock will disintegrate into pieces. Those weathering is also known as the physical weathering. If the rock are exposed to very lesser amount of temperature, that is the temperature minus 0 degree Celsius, for that cases also the rock will be divided into smaller pieces. That is also will come under the physical or mechanical weathering. So the physical or mechanical weathering are due to the two actions, frost action and the thermal action. So what is meant by frost actions? For example, if there will be a rock with presence of cracks, those cracks will be filled by the water. If the particular rock will undergo minus 0 degree Celsius, means what will happen is the water present on those cracks will converted into the ice crystal. The formation of the ice crystal which will induce the pressure surrounding the ice crystal. Those pressure will transfer into the periphery of the rocks, and due to the confining pressure keep on acting on those rock, the rock will be split up into the two pieces. So those actions are known as the frost action. After the frost action, there will be two types of products will form on the rock. One product is the thallus, another one is the scree. As we all know, in physical weathering, the rock will be disintegrated into smaller pieces. So, the smaller particles which is formed due to the frost action will be present on the slope of the weathered rock, means those products are known as the thallus slope. If after the weathering process due to the frost action, if the smaller particles will roll on the slope and settled near the bottom of the rock, means those particles are known as the scree. The frost actions is all another type of formation produced is exudations. So, due to the frost action near the seashore, if the particular rock will undergoes the frost action along with the chemicals present on your seawater, means it will undergoes the exudations process. So exudation is nothing but it is a process similar to frost action, but in the case of disintegration take place due to the formation of crystal of salt like sodium chloride etc. within the cavities. These exudations always occurred in the rock which is near to the another main causes of the physical weathering next to the frost action is thermal actions. If your rock will undergo the very high amount of temperature, that is excess under more than 100 degrees Celsius of temperature, due to the high amount of temperature exposed also, the rock will be divided into smaller pieces. So those types of weathering are known as the physical weathering. So after the physical weathering, you will get the rock in the two form. One is the insolation, another one is the exfoliations. So exfoliation is nothing but due to the very high amount of temperature acting on the rock, which will result in the peeling of the curved shells present in your rock. So the outermost layer of the rock get peeled off. Those processes are known as the exfoliations. This is due to the thermal actions. Another one is the insolation. If one rock is exposed to alternate temperature changes, means it will changes its original state to the broken stones. This is known as the insolation. The second type of rock is the weathering is the chemical weathering. So it is a process of alteration of a rock of the crust of the earth by chemical decomposition brought by the atmospheric gases and moistures. The chemical changes in the nature of the rocks takes place in the presence of moistures containing many active gases from the atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide, nitrogen, hydrogen, and oxygen. Few examples of chemical reaction which will induce the chemical weathering are solution, hydration, hydrolysis, oxidation, reductions, formation of colloids, carbonation, etc. As we all know, the rock which will be made up of different types of minerals and chemicals. If those minerals or chemicals which will react with the water or moisture or any chemicals present on a earth surface means what will happen is it will change its original form to the another form. So the new formation which causes the rock disintegrated into the smaller pieces. For example, if there will be a rock with calcium sulfate chemical, once it will react with the water, it will transfer it anhydrate proper to the gypsums. So in anhydrate nature, the rock will be in a solid state. Once it will changes into the gypsums, it loses its intact property and we can easily break the rock into the smaller pieces. So due to the chemical reactions between the rock and any other external agency which make the rock to loses its property and made to break it easily. So those weathering are known as the chemical. And there will be another chemical formation is the colloidal formation, which is the main causes of the formation of the clay mineral. So the formation of clay mineral also will come under the chemical. Next, another interesting weathering type is the spheroidal weathering, which will be formed due to the action of both physical and chemical weathering. So, spheroidal weathering is nothing but it is a complex type of weathering observed in the jointed rocks and is characterized with the breaking of original rock into spheroidal block. Both chemical and physical process are believed operated in spheroidal weathering. The last type of weathering is the biological weathering. So, always the hydrogen ions are known to be released at the root of plants due to its growth and metabolism. These ions are replaced by sodium, calcium, magnesium ions from the minerals and rocks surrounding the root system and use the nutrition of the plant. So, what will happen is due to the exchange of the chemicals or minerals from the rock to the growth of the plant, which loses the property of minerals present in the rock. So, for the growth of the plant, the rock will supply the minerals to the plants and loses its own strength. So, due to the process, the rock will loses its property and causes the disintegration. So those types of weatherings are known as the biological weathering. So after the disintegration of the rock into smaller pieces due to the physical or chemical or biological weathering, the product which we are getting are soil. So the various factors which will influence the weathering are nature of rock, climate and physical weathering. So as a civil engineer, if you are constructing any structures, it may be a residential building or it may be any massive structure like dam, bridges, etc. Always you have to look for the nature of the rock, that is whether the rock will be intact or weathered rock. If you are constructing any structure on the weathered rock, which will be lead to the unstable structures. So always we have to look for if there will be a presence of weathering in the rock. If there will be a presence of weathering means which type of weathering it is, whether it is a physical, chemical or biological. We have to discuss and study the case in detail before going for the construction. So after the any types of rock, the rock are disintegrated into small pieces. So if the smaller pieces are present above the parent rock itself, those types of weathered products are known as alluvium or regolith. So if after the disintegration of rock into smaller pieces, if those smaller pieces are present outside the parent rock, those products are known as the delivium. So the product is nothing but our soil. So due to the continuous weathering process, the rock will be disintegrated into smaller pieces. Those smaller pieces will travel from the one place to another place, and it will form layer by layer, and we will get the soil profile or soil pedogenous. A soil profile is nothing but the vertical cross section of the soil made up of layers running parallel to the surface. Soil profile is also known as the soil origin. Thank you. Happy learning.